negotiation strategies. I start to record and now I'm going to start sharing the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Well, this is our first web conference for the course International Negotiation Strategies. My name is Angela Piedad Suarez Torres. I'm the course director. Today is the 27th of September, 2024. I'm professional on international relations from Universidad del Rosario. I'm specialized on European studies from the same university, Universidad del Rosario, and I have a master's degree on international politics from Newcastle University in the UK. Our class plan for today, first we had the presentation, then we're going to talk about international negotiation, global strategies, internationalization process, international negotiation phases and tactics, cultural considerations in negotiation, and at the end, we're going to have a feedback session. But if during the course, during the class, you have any questions, any doubts, there is something that you don't understand, just raise your hand or ask. I will please to answer what you or your request. I would like to know if you have any troubles first with the language, if you're understanding what I'm saying, if it's easy for you or difficult for you to understand how am I speaking.
Hi, teacher, and hi, Maribel. I can understand because my English level is medium, and you speak a bit slow, and I can understand for a while. I don't know when you continue the presentation, maybe I can understand some words.
It's okay, Marta. If you have any question, you just have to ask, okay? I'm going to try to speak slowly, and the main words, maybe the main ideas are going to be on the presentation just to help to understand what I'm saying, okay? The idea is to work in English, to do the whole course in English, because that's the only way that really we can learn. If I'm going to mix with Spanish, maybe you will understand, but the problem is that you're not going to have any help with your English. So the idea to improve the English skills are practicing. And I know that sometimes it's very difficult to practice, so what I want to do in these sessions is for you also to help you with a little bit of practice, okay? The idea is that most of the information you already know it, you have read, you have learned something about it, and I'll try to speak slow because sometimes I try to speak quite fast. So any question, just ask, okay? And Maribel, is that okay for you? Do you understand everything? Maribel are you still there? Okay. Also, you can use the chat if you have any questions, okay? Well, we're going to start. First of all, we're going to talk about international negotiation, which is a process where parties from different countries aim to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. I think that this concept, you already have it clear. The international negotiation includes, of course, two or more parts from different countries, from different cultures, and the objective is to get a deal, to get an agreement. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the whole process of the negotiation. Is that important, the international negotiation, or why is it important? It's important in the case for the international trade, for the success of international trade. If we don't have international negotiations between companies, it is not possible to get on with the international trade, to continue with international trade. And it is also important to facilitate the conflict resolution and the partnership building. Why? The international negotiation is, when we talk about general international negotiation, we're not talking just about business. We also talk about maybe international conflicts in trade, in business, in commerce, or maybe in politics too. So, what we do when we try to get a deal with someone else, with another company, somewhere else in a different country, we want to build a partnership, to build a relationship, a business relationship. But also there are some times that maybe we can have some conflicts or difficulties, and then we also are going to need the international negotiation to deal with it, to solve those situations, those conflicts. So international negotiation, it is important not only in international trade to get those agreements, but also to solve those conflicts, to build the partnership between the different parts involved in the process of negotiation. For this process, we also have internationalization strategies. Internationalization strategies are known as the methods that the companies use to expand into foreign markets. And there are many different ways. Sometimes when we think about internationalization of a company, we may think about exporting goods or services. But it's not the only one. Exporting means selling goods to foreign markets. I want to make an explanation in this part because often when we talk with different people on the street, maybe some people they have a misunderstanding, a conflict between exportation and importation. So maybe when we're not related with international business, when we're not students on international business, it's okay for people to be confused between exporting and importing. But it is very important that for students of international business and professions related to be clear the difference between export and import, which is clear only with the word, but I would like to make it more clear, which means exporting is to sell. If I'm a Colombian and I want to export a product, it means that I want to sell a Colombian product in the international market. If I'm Colombian and I want to buy something from the international trade from somewhere abroad, I'm going to import the product. So I just want to make it clear because often I have that situation with different people and sometimes with professionals. So I want to remark how important it is for us to make a good use of the terms, okay? Exporting, importing. In this case, when we're talking about international negotiation and we're talking about key strategies, exporting, which is selling goods to a foreign market, is one of the key strategies, just one. The second one that we're talking about is licensing. What's the meaning of licensing? Licensing means allowing a foreign entity to produce your product. It means I'm going to give a permission to someone abroad to make, to produce my product, okay? Mm, maybe, well, in that case, I'm just going to use this Spanish word that may help you to make it clear. It would be like maquilas. When you allow an international company, another company with some rights and conditions to produce the same good somewhere else. Okay, sometimes that licensing helps the, to decrease the cost of production. So that's why we can see it very often in the international market. So this is licensing. The third one, the third strategy is the joint venture. Joint venture is a collaboration with local firms for shared risks and expertise. It's an alliance. It's an alliance in those we're going to share the risk. The risk is not going to be just for one of the parts, it's going to be together. The firms are going to share the risk and the expertise. The last strategy is the foreign direct investment, which means investing directly in foreign assets or companies. It means, for example, foreign direct investment. In our case in Colombia, we can have from different companies or organizations or institutions abroad that may find a interesting project in Colombia and they're going to invest some money to develop the project. Of course, there are conditions, but that's like having an international partnership, someone like another partner that is going to invest in our project to get, of course, some utilities. But that's the meaning of foreign direct investment. Do you have any question for now? Do you understand everything that I've said already? Good evening,
Yes.
Marisol. Okay, Maribel, I thought that you had left. Marisol, are you here with us? Okay. Marisol, welcome to this first web conference. I'm trying to speak slow because I'm not going to speak in Spanish. The idea of the course for all of you is to practice some English related with the profession, with international business. And that's what I'm going to speak slowly. Sometimes it makes easier for the students to do it that way. If you have any questions, just ask. You can ask on the chat and I will check sometimes because I cannot see the chat at the same time that I'm presenting, okay? Okay, we'll continue. Now we're going to talk about global strategies. Those global strategies are those comprehensive approaches to compete in international markets. It means which strategies are we going to use to get a place, a space, a participation in the international market? How are we going to do it? Because sometimes we think, okay, we're going to export or we're going to find an international partnership, but maybe we have some troubles thinking about how are we going to do, designing the strategy that we're going to use to get it. So some of the strategies, the types of strategies, global strategies are, well, I have three here. The first one is a global standardization. The global standardization means offering an uniform product globally, but it also depends on the type of product that we have. We can do this global standardization where it's a product that is used in the same way everywhere in the world, that the consumer need is the same anywhere in the world. That's why the example is Apple, or could be Microsoft or Google. Those are international companies that offer or a service or a product that answers to a need that the international customer has. So if you have a product from Apple, it's the same type of product that you're going to get here in Colombia or in the United States or in Africa or in India or China or Europe. Mm, Particular minimum things or maybe things that we can change in the same product may change, but the product as it's known, it's going to be the same everywhere. It's not going to change because it's China, because it's Europe. It's the same computer, it's the same laptop, it's the same watch, it's the same iPhone. In Google, it's the same service. So that's the meaning of a global standardization, that you offer a product, the same product, in any place of the world because it fills the need of the consumer, which is the same everywhere in the world. I think it's for very specialized products that we can consider this global standardization, but it's one of the strategies. The second strategy is a localization, which means a tailoring product to fit local preferences. We can see this example is McDonald's with regional menus. It's a global mark, McDonald's. We all know the logo, it's very familiar. But if you go to McDonald's in the United States and then you go to a McDonald's in Europe and then you go to McDonald's in India or China, you're not going to find the same products everywhere. Maybe one or two products are going to be quite similar, but the rest of the menu, in the case of McDonald's, is going to change because they change according to the needs of the customers. So, for example, the big difference in the case of McDonald's is that the food, the hamburgers are made of meat. But in India, most of the people, they don't eat meat. So McDonald's had to change the menu and change it to a menu according to the type of food that they consume, which is more vegetarian. So you're not going to find those hamburgers, vegetarian hamburgers from India, in a McDonald's in the United States or in Europe. You're going to find different products in each of those menus. That's the meaning of localization, the tailoring products to fit local preferences. The third type of global strategy is the transitional strategy. The transitional strategy is balancing global efficiency and local responsiveness, and in this case is Coca-Cola. It's more familiar with localization, which means that Coca-Cola also it's produced everywhere in the world, has the same recipe because it's not going to change, but it may have a little bit of variation depending on the place where you find it. The taste of Coca-Cola, everyone in the world would be considered like the same, but it has maybe a change in the flavor depending the place in the world, and it's more according also to the taste, what the people like in every place. So those are three types of global strategies used in those process of internationalization of the companies. Most of the times when we think about our product in a foreign market, the first thing that we have to do is to know all the characteristics of our product. Maybe when we talk about being in a local market, our product is going to be more familiar and may have some more competitors in a local market because we all have almost the same taste, more or less the same needs. But when we want to export a product, we have to look for a market where the profile of the consumer it's it's similar or it's quite similar to the profile of the consumer that we usually have. So if we don't know the characteristics of our product or service, if we don't have that deep knowledge on how our product is different from the others and from the competition, it's going to be very difficult for us to know which market is going to be good for us if we want to export. So the first step is to know our product. And then we're going to look for a market which profile fits to our product or our product is going to fit in that market. And there are many other variables that we have to consider. But the most important is to know perfectly every characteristic of our product. It's the only way that we can be successful in any international negotiation abroad. To understand most of the internationalization process, in theories, we have some that can help us to understand how those internationalization processes can be done, can be successful. So I think that you have learned some about, but I'm going just to give you an ideas of three of the international theories that can fit when we talk about this internationalization process. And of course, that when we talk about these internationalization negotiations. But when we talk about the internationalization theories, there are not only three theories, there are so many, because those processes involve different variables. So the idea is just to have like a global understanding of some internationalization theories, but it's not just close to those. Okay, so we can find many more. One of them is the Uppsala model. The Uppsala model talks about a gradual internationalization process, which is based on the market knowledge. This process was developed by the Swedish researchers Johansson and Walm in the 1970s and explains how firms gradually increase their internationalization involvement. The theory suggests that the companies often start with a limited internationalization and progressively they expand operations and they gain experience and knowledge. It means it's a process step by step. It's not a fast process, it's a slow process of internationalization. And it means that the companies, the firms, they start basically with exporting because it involves a lower risk. Of course, to be on the exporting point step, it means a lot of work. But what I mean by the internationalization theory of Uppsala model is that the first part that they do, that the companies want to try to learn more about the international market, is exporting. So the firms start to export with a lower risk, with some commitment, and the idea is to gain experience. And then in the process, when they gain experience, they can move to more commitment, to more risks, and maybe to consider, for example, a joint ventures or a wholly owned subsidiaries. So this is a slow process. This model emphasizes the importance of acquiring experience and knowledge on the market. The companies learn about the foreign markets gradually, and this knowledge reduces, of course, uncertainty and risk. So they don't want to risk a lot. They just go step by step. They go very slow, and of course, they just want to gain experience. In the way they gain experience, they can get more participation on the market and they can consider other options more than just exporting. But the idea is to have a lower risk, not have a higher risk, but a lower risk, which means that this internationalization process it's seen as a learning process, a process where they are learning about the international market, the international trends, the international opportunities. They know more, they learn more about the market, the consumer profile. So that makes that the company is getting more experience, more knowledge, and the risk is going to be lower. In the way that they're learning, they're trying new experiences, and maybe they move from exporting to joint venture or to another options, as I said before. So this is very important to consider as one of the theories, which might be more used for small and medium companies, because those companies, they don't have that much experience, that much knowledge about the international market, so they try to go step by step slowly and to get a low risk. Well, the eclectic paradigm uh, considers the ownership, the location, and the international advantages that this process can bring. What's the meaning of eclectic? Eclectic is made up of elements from different sources. It means that for this process of internationalization, we're going to consider different variables and, of course, different options to go through this process of internationalization. So we consider, for example, if we're going just to export, where are we going to be? Where are we going to export? We're going to analyze the advantages that we can have from the process of internationalization, if it's good or not, if the company has like the experience to do it, if the company considers the risk that is going to have in this process. If the company is just going to export, or if the company is going to consider to make merge, to get an strategic partnership. So there are different variables that are going to be considered of this internationalization process. And the third one is the Portes diamond. The Portes diamond, maybe you have learned something about it before. And the main characteristic of the Portes diamond is the competitive advantage in the international market. considering the factor conditions, demand conditions, etc. More of them. So when we think about the Porter's diamond, it parts from what I was saying before. We need to know very well our product to understand and consider which is the market where we're going to be. Where is our product going to fit? Where is our product going to find a space in that market to fit in and to get the acceptation of the consumer? So most of the times we take our product, we put it in the market, and maybe we just have price fluctuations, and maybe we move according to the demand. But we really need to have to know which is the competitive advantage that our product has compared with the competition that we could have. So if I'm offering something, some food, well, any product, I really need to understand and to know which is the competitive advantage that I have compared with my competitors. So when I get to know the international market, the market where I want to put my product, I need to analyze the competition. Where am I going to locate my product? What's going to be the differential characteristic that my product offers to the consumer? If I don't have this clear, it's very difficult to get a space in that market, to get a share of that market. So the Porter's diamond, even if we talk about Sala model, eclectic paradigm, we always are going to need to understand, to read, to consider the competitive advantage that we have. Why my product is different, why my service is different, and why I consider that I'm going to get a share of that market because of that difference, because of that advantage. So that's very important from the beginning to have it, because maybe we can have a whole strategy of internationalization, and when we get to the market, we see that we don't have any place there, that the conditions, the characteristics that make my product different, those characteristics are not considered for that consumer, for the profile consumer that we have there in that market. So that's very important for us to consider, analyze, and know very well our product. What are we going to offer, the product or the service, the good or the service? But that's very important to consider. Now we continue with the phases of the international negotiation. I've seen that you have already go through those concepts. You've done readings about it, and then you already have a guide, an idea of those phases of international negotiation. But the idea also is to explain each of them, to know and to understand why they are important in the process, each of them. In this case, we have 5 phases. Maybe we can find more or less, but those are very important to be considered. The first one, as any process that we have, is the preparation. If we're going through a negotiation, an international or a local negotiation, we always need to be prepared. We always have to read, to know something about the other parts, to consider how the other part moves. Taking for an example out of the context of international negotiation, we go, for example, to a football match, an international football match or a national football match. We think about maybe Selección Colombia, the national football team. The national football team has a football match with the foreign with a foreign football team. They're not just going to practice how they play. The first of all that they have to do, the first thing that they have to do, and one of the parts of the preparation that they have for that match is to learn how the other team plays. What are the strong points, the weak points, which is the movement of each of the players, the role of each of the players, how do they move, and what do they look for, what's the strategy that they use. So they have to learn more about the other party. In a negotiation, in an international negotiation, that's the main part, to prepare, to be ready, to learn, to know, to read the other, to understand the other. In that case, we have part of the negotiation reached or done. So what do we have to do for that preparation is to do a research on the other party's culture, interests, and negotiation styles. If we don't know anything about the other part from the negotiation, it's going to be very difficult to get successful negotiation process. In the case of international negotiations, we need to know a lot of things about the culture, the interests, and how do they negotiate. That's really, really important. If we don't know anything about the culture, it's going to be very difficult just to start the process of negotiation, to understand the behavior of the negotiators. If we don't understand the interests of the other part, we're not going to understand the whole process, and we're not going to understand what the other part is going to do through the negotiation process. So it is very important for an international negotiation to be prepared, to do research, to learn the maximum that we can. If it's with a company, we just don't need also to know, we need to know the culture, the interests, the negotiation, but also to know, for example, the role of this company into that market, how important they are. If we already know that we're going to be seated with person A, B, and C, we need to do some research, which is the role that they have into the company, how important are they into the company, if they're going to be able to take a decision, or if they're just going to be there just to read us and to learn us and to talk about general ideas of the negotiation, because that's very important to know who is the person who is next to me to negotiate. If the person that is next in front of me to negotiate has the power to take decisions of, or if that person is just going to take all the information and then to bring it to the head of the company. So that's very important to know, to learn, to research. To do research is very, very important in the preparation process. The second phase is the relationship building. It's to establish trust and rapport with the other part. And it comes and it depends from the first part. If we learn something about the culture, we're going to know how important is for the other part to build that relationship process of, or if they're just there to make an international negotiation and to close a business in that moment. So if we don't have a good relation, a good preparation, maybe we're going to fail in the relationship building. Because maybe we think, oh no, we need to be friends first with them, and then we're going to take them to a restaurant, and we're going to talk about something different from the business. And then you're going to find someone, to face someone that is just there to make a transaction, to make a negotiation, and then maybe you may lose your time and your expectations on something that is going to be not very important for the other part. So if you don't have a good preparation, you may fail in the second part, that is the relationship building, or in the other way around. If you're going there and you think, oh no, we're just going to talk about business, we just need to let them know what we need, what we want, what we can give. And the other part is going to be like, no, we need to know each other first. We need to share some food. We need to talk about other things to learn something about the the type of person that you are. So in that case, you may lose also the second phase because you didn't do a good research about the other part. And more than the other part is not is the culture interests, um, who is coming to the negotiation. So the relationship building is very important, and but is based also on the preparation process. It depends on how the culture and the interests run, how they are, and then we are going to see how important is the relationship building part important for them or not. The third part, the third phase is the information exchange. Have a clear communication and listen to the other party. The negotiation is not just going to say, hey, I'm this company and I have this product and I want to sell to you and the price is this one. No, you have to have an exchange of information. Exchange is I'm going to let them know what I want, but I'm going to listen what they're looking for. Because if they are, first of all, I'm just telling my product is this, and I'm offering this, the price is this, but the other person is going to say, no, look, what I'm looking for is for something like this. And in that process, you're going to think, okay, my product is this one, but they need this one, but I can make some changes. I can organize things and fix the product in a way that is going to be useful for them. So that's the meaning of the exchange of information. Not just telling to the other part what you have, but listen to the others what they're looking for. That's very important. Clearly communicative. And in this case, it's very important when we talk about international negotiation is the manage of language. Sometimes we may consider to go with a translator, but most of the times, even if you have a translator, you need to know the language because sometimes you may lose under translation and you need to learn to understand the ideas. When we're learning English, sometimes we use a lot the dictionary English, Spanish, Spanish, English. But the thing is that not always there is a literal translation of the word that explains the meaning of the word in the context. So one of the process that we have to do through the process of learning English or any other language is to use an English dictionary that is going to explain to you the meaning of each word. Because sometimes the words they're going to have different meanings depending on the context, on the phrase that they are. So that's very important to be considered. In this clearly communicative interest, in this information exchange, the language is very important. And in the process of preparation, something that we need to learn is also about the language, the body language, and of course the the, the language spoken. Sometimes the people just in the way they move, how they look, like the faces they do, the movement of the hands explains a lot of from what they say. So we have to learn not only the language as it is, like the English or French or whatever, but we also need to look at the people and to understand and to read their bodies, to understand if they're comfortable, if they're secure, if they're insecure, if they're not trusting. There are so many things that the body language can indicate and help you with the process of negotiation that you can manage through the negotiation. But if you don't read that, if you don't care about the faces and the movement of the body and the reactions, then you may losing like half of the communication in the process. So it is very important to consider this. That's why, for example, in the process of uh, online learning, it's quite difficult when, for example, when we don't see the faces, when we don't see the expressions. In this case, when I cannot see your faces, what faces are you doing, if you're paying attention or not? And that it's a communication in two ways. And then when I can see my students face to face, I can see if they're understanding, if they're interested or not. But in this case, when I don't see, for example, your faces, is more difficult. I just have to assume that you're in front of the laptop, in front of your mobile phone, and that you're understanding what I'm saying. It's the same in international process negotiation or in any negotiation. It is more difficult when you cannot see the face of the other person, the reaction of the other person. In the process of negotiation, you need to see that, to understand, to read the body, to understand the face that the person is making. Like if you've been clear. Sometimes when you talk to someone, and just because the face that you see that the other is doing is just like, didn't you understand what I was saying? So that's the same situation in international negotiation process. So the communication is not just talking and listening, it's just looking at the other person and get some more information from the body language, the faces expressions, the movement of the hands, um, many other things that you can learn and see and understand from the whole communication process. The fourth phase is the bargaining, which is important to consider that not all the cultures are uh, available to bargain. Most of us we are, and most of us we're used to bargain, but some others not. So we have to be prepared and do some research about bargaining in the cultures. And that means propose terms and counteroffers to negotiate. Sometimes there are a few cultures that they just put on the table the option and that's it. There is no option to change it, to have a negotiation on the conditions. It's that or nothing. But most of the culture, they are available to bargaining, so you have to offer some conditions, and but everything is available to negotiate, to consider, to reconsider if that's useful for you, or we can do some changes. And what do you think? What are you interested in? So that's the process of bargaining, giving from each part, but you have to go back to the face first and do research if the other culture, the other part is used to make that process of bargaining, or if you're going to lose your time considering bargaining with them. The last part is the closure. Finalize the agreement and document all terms. Well, that's the successful of the negotiation. It's not that easy as just phases that you can go through, because it depends on the culture. Sometimes just with one meeting is going to go through the whole negotiation. Sometimes you need time, and it depends on the culture. The Western cultures are more easy going in the process to going it to doing it like faster. Maybe some Europeans, more from the north of Europe, they just go to the business, and their relationship building is not that important. In the case of China, which is a very important example in international negotiations, they have the guanxi. The guanxi is the most important part in the whole process of relationships to build business. In everything, the guanxi is the base of everything. And guanxi meets relationship building. So, in the case of the Chinese, if you want to get an international to be successful in an international negotiation process, what you have to do is consider the time, be patient, and then you're going to think about building a real relationship between the parts if you want to get a business in the future. It's not just a thing that a meeting and we're going to deal with it and we're going to sign the contracts and the agreement. No. In the case of the Chinese, you have to build a relationship first, a friendship. You need to know the other person more. So most of the times, those meetings, they're not going in a conference room, but most of the times you're going to be taken to a restaurant. And one of the characteristics of the Chinese restaurants is that the tables are not square, but they're round tables, like two round tables, the big one, the base one, and there is a small one in the middle where it's going to serve all the dishes. And you're going to share the food. It's not in our case that when you're going to a restaurant, each person is going to ask for one meal, what they want to eat, and they're going to eat alone by themselves. In the case of the Chinese, it's more sharing. And then you're going to, each person is going to ask for different dishes. And there, this round table in the middle is going to move round and round. And then you're going to take everything that you want, but it's sharing. And that sharing means building also a relationship, a friendship. Uh, and the food is very important for them. And the drinking is also important for them. So you can share a drink with them, a beer or another liquor. So the idea for the Chinese is first to build, to establish, as it says, trust and rapport between parts. So the relationship, the guanxi in the Chinese culture is very, very important. Everywhere where you're going to read about Chinese negotiation, Chinese international negotiation, you're going to read about guanxi. It's the most important. When I was a student, I used to read about it and I was like, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it can be true. But then when I met the Chinese, when I had to share with the Chinese, they told me, Angela, the most important thing is to build a friendship. If I want to make business with you, we need to be friends first. And I need to know you, but not just to know who Angela is if you're married, if you live with your parents, if you have brothers and sisters, what's your job, what are your hobbies, what do you do, and share those things to build a real friendship, a real relationship between the parts. And that's very important. When you get to know the other person, then you can trust the other person. And if you trust the other person, then you can consider to make business with the other person. So if you want to build a relationship with the Chinese in the terms of international business, it's going to take a time. If you're going to be faster, then you need someone in China who is going to present you. But at the same time, it's like you're going one step ahead, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to build a relationship. You also have to build that relationship. But you have one step ahead because someone says that person is reliable or that company is reliable. You can rely on that person or on that company. But at the same time, you need to build that relationship. You need to build that friendship with the other part. So, the phases of the international negotiation, as we can see here, 5 phases. Okay, easy. You have to consider the first research that you do, how it's going to be, how long is going to take the process. So you cannot consider that because you're going to talk with the Chinese in a meeting, you're going to sign an agreement. That's not possible with them. Not at all. You need to go through the whole process with them. You need to know more about them. Sometimes in the Eastern cultures, the first person that is going to meet you in a international business is not going to be the head of the company. It's going to be someone in the low level, someone that is just going to learn more about your company and bring all the information to the head of the company. And in the way that they're getting to know you, maybe you're going to meet people higher and higher and higher level. But you're not going to be with the head of the company at the beginning just because you call and said, hey, I want to make business with you. The whole process is going to take long. So that's very important. Sometimes we think that in theory it is like this, but in reality it's going to change. But I can assure you, yeah, for example, with the Chinese people, what we learn in the books, what we can find on internet, when we can read anything, anywhere, it's going to be truth because for them, the relationship building is the most important. The guanxi is very important to build any business relationship, to have something in the future. In the future, it's not going to be like right now, which has a difference from the Western culture, which people maybe want to go through the negotiation process like faster and to get results more rapidly compared with the Eastern cultures. Well, we're going to continue to talk about the international negotiation tactics. What's the meaning of that? That's the specific strategies used to influence the negotiation outcome. So, what are we going to use? What are we going to do to be successful on those processes? So, we have here four, as I was saying, you may find more in the readings that you can get about the international process of negotiation. The first that I have here is the anchoring, which means starting with a strong initial offer. So in this case, we go like higher. We offer like call with a very complete offer. And in this one, we want to let know like how powerful we are and how many things we can offer, how strong we are, and we're going to show everything that we have. The second tactic is the silence. And in this one, this tactic, uh, the idea is to use pauses to encourage to the other party to speak. It means that I'm not just going to go through my whole presentation, but I'm going to give some spaces to get some questions. So I have some silence moments to hear the other part. And then it's going to be a fluent communication that may give us more information about what they need and is going to help us with the process. The third tactic is concessions. In this one is making small sacrifices to build a goodwill. And those we can see it we can uh, develop them through the process of negotiation in the way that we can see how the others are behaving, if their body language is telling us something, and then we can see their reaction to things that we say. And then we can say, look, if you're not comfortable with this situation, we could change and we could give you this. So those are like sacrifices that we can see to to show them the interest that we have. Like, yes, we are interested. We could sacrifice, we could give a little bit more, but also we consider some retribution. Like, it's not just going me who is going to sacrifice. We're in an international in a negotiation process, so if I give you something, I'm going to ask you something in exchange. So those are the concessions. And the fourth one is the framing, is presenting information to influence perceptions. It depends on the way we're showing, uh, to make them feel and understand more what we want. And maybe to change the perception that they have about the product, about the situation, about the company. So it's the way that we're going to present the things, that we're going to get or influence the perception that they have about our product, our service, our company. So those are tactics that can be used in those negotiation process. Now we go to one of the very important points that I consider in one characteristic that is considered in the whole program of international business that you're studying at the university, which is the cultural element. In the negotiation process, we're going to talk about the cultural considerations in the negotiation. So I was talking to you about the research that we have to do about the other part and how we need to learn about the culture. The culture is very important in the process of international negotiation. Even if we think about the local negotiation, we need to know a little bit more about the other part to have some points in our favor to go through the negotiation and to be successful. In this case, when we think about international negotiations, we need to learn so many things about the culture, because the culture, it's we are an expression of our culture. So I'm the result of the culture that involves me, that the environment where I grow up. So the way that I behave is a result of my culture. In a process of negotiation, I'm going to show part of my culture through the process. So that's why we need to learn so many things about the culture when we're thinking about going through an international negotiation process. Understanding culture differences is vital for successful negotiations. It is impossible for us to impose our point of view in a process of negotiation. We need to consider, but also to understand that those differences in culture are going to be very important in the process, in the success or failure of the process of negotiation. It is impossible for me to be successful in a process of international negotiation if I don't understand the behavior of the other part, because the other part comes from another culture. If for me it's impossible to understand that, it is not possible for me to be part of an international process of negotiation. Why? Because the culture plays, as it says, a crucial role in shaping negotiations styles, strategies, and outcomes in international contexts. Understanding cultural differences can significantly influence the success of negotiation. According to Hofstede's cultural dimensions, there are 4 dimensions that are considered. The first one is the power distance, how the power is distributed in a culture. So the thing is that in every culture, in every culture, um, the power might be considered in a different way. It means in cultures with high power distance, for example, many Asian cultures, authority and hierarchy play a significant role in negotiations. Decisions may come from senior leaders, and respect for authority may shape the negotiation dynamics. It means it is more like very hierarchical um, hierarchical shape of the companies where the power remains in the head of the company. And I was saying before that in the case of the Eastern cultures, at the beginning you may meet someone from the lower rank. In the way that they are trusting you, you may meet someone from higher and higher rank. But you're not going to negotiate with someone with lower rank. The negotiation is going to be placed with the leader, with the head of the company. And that's the meaning of power distance. In more plain organizations and cultures, maybe Western, as I was saying, maybe from the north of Europe, um, you may go through the process of negotiation with someone which has the power to negotiate and is not the head of the company, but has a rank and the power to negotiate. So it is different from every culture. So that's why it's very important to consider those dimensions to understand the power distance. That's one of the elements. Another element is the individualism versus collectivism, which emphasize on personal versus group interests. Individualistic cultures like the American from the United States, they prioritize personal goals and decisions, while collectivist cultures like China and India, they emphasize group consensus and harmony. This can affect how proposals are evaluated and accepted. In this case, you need to know if it's an individualist or collectivist profile, and that's the way also you're going to manage the negotiation, to know how important is the person, if you're going to focus on the person or if you're going to understand the teamwork. So that's very important in the research process to understand those elements from the cultural dimension. Uncertainty avoidance means how cultures deal with ambiguity. So, how important is for them to get the whole information or just to have an idea? So, how important is for them that uncertainty or they're not comfortable with it? And another element, even if we think, no, women, we have the same rights, and if we're going to deal with men, that's not fair because women, we have rights. Yes, we can have our way of thinking, but when we go through an international negotiation, we just need to know the distribution of emotional roles, masculinity versus femininity. Some cultures prefer straightforward, direct communication, like the Americans and Germany, while others rely on subtlety and context, like Japan and China. Misinterpretations can arise if negotiators do not adjust their communication styles accordingly. So, these emotional roles, they're going to be very, very, very clear. You need to understand how in that culture goes that. If it's okay for you as a woman to be in the process of, or if in that case, the other part is going to be more comfortable with men. Yes, It's not the ideal in my culture. I prefer we have equal rights, we're the same. Yes, but if you really want to get a successful process of negotiation, you have to consider that. If the other part is not going to be, if the other part is not going to trust in women, if the other part is going to be machista, if the other part is going to be like, we don't like to negotiate with women, we don't think like in equal situation, we need to negotiate with men. You're not going to be like, no, because I'm the leader and I'm a woman and you have to accept that. No. In this process of negotiation, you need to put in the shoes of the other part and to think, okay, if I want to sell my product, because that's what we're going to do, it's not to impose my way of thinking, it's just to sell my product, and they don't want to negotiate with me because I'm a woman. Okay, I have to deal with it. I have to design a strategy. I have to use those tactics. I need to learn to be ahead of them and to give them what they want because I need to get that share of the market. So we have to prioritize what are we looking for in the process of negotiation. Is not to impose what I think. What I think, it gets to a side because what I need is to make business with them. So that's the more important, and we have to differentiate to make a differentiation of what I want as a person and what I need as a business person. So that's really, really important to be considered because those elements are going to be different from culture to culture. Well, what else? Cultural values influence the tactics used during negotiation, as I was telling you. For example, the high context cultures may rely on nonverbal cues and the overall context, while low context cultures may focus on explicit verbal agreements. And I was saying, sometimes you need to look ahead. You need to look for more. Some cultures, they just rely on what you're saying. Some others, they're not just hearing what you're saying, but they're looking what you're doing, how your behavior and how you're moving, the expression of your face, the movement of your body. If you really represent a secure person, or if you doubt on what you're saying. So this is very important to have it clear when you're going through a process of negotiation to understand what are they going to look at me, if they're just going to listen to me and to read the document that I'm going to give them, or if they're going to be all the time looking at me, analyzing me, how I behave, how I move, my face expression, what I'm saying, if what I'm saying goes according to my body language and my face. Different cultures have varying definitions of ethics and acceptable behavior in negotiations. Understanding these values can help avoid misunderstandings on or perceived breaches of conduct. So this is very important because, as I was saying, maybe I have my ethic, I have my moral principles, but they may be different from the other part of the negotiation process. So I need to be aware of those differences to make no mistakes on the process and to understand, to make the difference of what I'm thinking as a person, what is very important for me as a person, or and what I want as a business person. If you're considering, no, I'm not going to make business with that people because they don't want to deal with women, because they don't want to negotiate with women, that's the first part of the research that you should have done. And if you know something that you don't like about that culture, and it's going to be against your principles, then you just have to stop considering that market and go through another one that is going to be more comfortable for you. But one thing is that you cannot try to change the others, because what we need to do, what we have to do, is to respect the other's culture. If I agree or not with what they do and how they think and how they behave is different. But first of all, we have to respect. And when we do a very good research, we decide, okay, I go through with it, or no, I'm not interested. I'm going to look for another market. So that's very important to be clear and to consider in the process. Being culturally aware allows negotiators to adapt their strategies and approaches, leading to more successful outcomes. Demonstrating respect for the other culture can foster goodwill and open up opportunities. That's the most important. If you learn how they do, if you learn how they behave, if you go through with it and respect them, you're going to have half of the negotiation. But if you don't like, if you don't share, if you don't want to go to a dinner, if you don't want to share a drink, if you don't feel comfortable, then stop the process and change, because that's very important with cultures. Sometimes we can think when we see international news and we see the violence against women and so many other things that we can see from the difference of cultures, and we say, no, that's terrible. I wouldn't be able to be there. I wouldn't be able to live like that. We have to go back to do some research and try to understand the culture. There are so many cases where international women from Western countries go to countries like India to help those women that are beaten by their husbands, and when they go there and they try to talk to them, and the women just says like, no, and that's his right, and that's okay, and I don't want to talk anything about it, and that's right with me, and that's our culture, and that's how we behave, and I'm not going to do anything against him. Is when you go like, what's going on? Why do they think like that? Yeah, you have to consider that those women live in a different context. Those women don't live in our context where we think that we are women, we're equal as men, and we have rights, and they have to respect us. For them, the culture and the way they grow up, it's completely different. To change the way they think is so complicated. Not all the women are going to be against their husbands because they beat them. For us, of course, it's not right. It shouldn't be like that, but it's more difficult to change their minds. Some people is just close with it. Some other women are open, and some other women they just want to get their rights and to fight for them. But not everyone thinks the same way. So we have to learn to do research and to learn about cultures to go through the process of negotiation. But that's very important because culture it's a very important element to be considered in the international negotiation process. Well, do you have any question at the moment? Do you want to share something from what we've been talking? So what I was saying all the time. Do you want to share something, maybe something that you have read about, some another examples that you have? Now I'm listening to you. Do you have any doubts? Are you sure, Maribel?
No, no, teacher.
Yes, Marta.
I don't have any doubts. I understand 5% about your talk, and I think it is well. Thank you.
Well, Maria Isabel and Maribel, the most important thing for me is that you have understand everything that I said. I hope that this information is useful for you, that It may help on your process of learning. And I would like to know if for the next session, the next web conference, you have some ideas of what you want to hear about, if that's okay to present like the themes, the theories, the concepts, or if you or if you prefer to go better on examples to learn more about the countries of, or if you think that maybe going through the theory and showing the examples it's okay. I would like to know which of them do you prefer.
With example, I think it's okay.
Okay, I think that one interesting way to learn things is just to see it in practice in reality. And for me, in my case, to show the things with examples is easier to understand. Not just the theory, but also to explain. And in this case, with international negotiation and how the culture is important in the process, is important to show you examples of the differences in the culture. So if, as you were saying, Maria Isabel, then I continue this way, showing the theory, but also with the examples and showing like the differences in cultures, because I consider by myself that it's a very good way to learn. For me, it's important to know if you really understood what I was saying. I'm going to share, of course, the recording of the session, and then you're going to be able to have the transcripts, so you can read. And if you have any question, you can ask me. You can go through the Teams, and maybe also you can ask me through the forum or through the email. Is that okay for you?
Yes, teacher, it's okay. I have a question. In Teams, there are one option that you can put the subtitle or transcription about you are talking in the moment, or that is not possible.
Yes, the transcripts, it was available. Here, if you can see, there is this option. Wait, I'm going to
No,
share
I can
my,
see. I can see. So
wait. Now, you can see my, what is it?
yes, I can see your chat, but I look my chat and that is not. I can see the transcription in my chat or in my screen.
In my screen, you're saying, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Then you look in this place where it says more actions, the 3 points, and then you go
Yes.
record and transcribe, and then you can look at the transcription. Can you do
Ah,
it?
yes. Let me a moment. I can. Ah, okay. I can see now. Thank you so much, teacher.
Okay. And Maribel too? Yes. Yes, that's the way. Then you can see the transcripts maybe for next time, but also when you download the recording, then you can see it when you can go, and as I do it in YouTube, when I share the recording, I put it in YouTube. Then you can put the closed caption, and then it's going to be there, the all the reading.
Okay, okay, teacher.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think that we're all done here. If you have questions, it's okay. I would like to know if you have any troubles with the activity that is going to close this Sunday.
No, in my team, I we finish our activity, but we don't have your your
No, which
opinion
group?
about the. Let me. Mm, we are 10,
Okay.
team 10.
I'm going to take a look tomorrow, and if I see something I can write you on the forum, okay?
Okay, teacher, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Maria Isabel. Okay, Maribel, I'm glad that you could understand and that it was useful for you. I know that it's not easy because it's in English, but the idea is to improve your skills, to practice. Don't be afraid to speak because it's not easy to find places where to practice. But in this case, I tried to speak slowly. And I hope that you could understand that it was not that difficult. And that's why everything that I answer in the course is going to be in English because it's going to be helpful for you. Okay? Thank you for your time. Have a good night, and we'll be in touch and we'll see you in the next web conference. Okay?
Okay, teacher, good night. Thank you so much.
Good night. Okay, you're welcome. Bye bye.